Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. My name is Austin Brubaker. I'm going to be your host this evening. It's evening, not afternoon. Really excited to be able to be here with you tonight. I actually just got back from spring training very early this morning. Had a flight, super early drive that I had to make this morning. Just got back from Arizona. Great experience that I had over there. First off, I want to take the early portion of the show just to give you guys a little bit of a sell to be able to go and try to go out to Camelback Ranch. I had the privilege to be able to go out there, flew down there Monday and went to games Tuesday through Friday. So I was at the game in Camelback on Tuesday and Thursday. And then at the games at Arizona and then at San Francisco on Wednesday and Friday. And it was a great experience to be able to go down there. Obviously, you see the spring training hat on my head. But the access that you're able to get at Camelback Ranch is remarkable. And it's not just the experience to be able to go see, because I had the opportunity to be able to see different bullpens that were thrown. On Thursday, Landon Knack was throwing a bullpen. On Tuesday, I got to see a big ski, Adam Serenowski. There was Luke Fox. There was, I think it was Paul Gervais. I don't remember. I think that's who it was. No, Lucas Wepp was part of that. There is a lot of different access you can get with guys in the bullpen. You can go out and get different autographs from a lot of the players. I did not go out and get the autographs, but you get really close access to a lot of the players. And you also get access to the minor league side, which is a great experience to be able to go back there, get to watch some batting practice, certain drills, get to see guys like Mike Sirota, who's returning back from injury, take batting practice. So I was really excited to see him, not just in the game today, which was not televised, a non-televised game, but also to be able to get him some at-bats in the backfields. That bodes really well for him being able to come back healthy at the beginning of the season. And just being able to interact with some of the guys as well was a phenomenal experience. It's access like that you don't get at a whole lot of other places. And even some of the places that I had the privilege to be able to go, the level of access that you get at Camelback Ranch is remarkable. So if you guys are able to or are looking to potentially go out to Arizona this year or in any of the future years, would highly recommend it. Had a great experience the past couple of days being able to watch the Los Angeles Dodgers. But we've got a little bit of baseball to be able to cover. Now, first off, Casey, done a phenomenal job covering for me while I've been out. I've been gone since last Saturday. And there's been a lot of baseball that has happened for the Los Angeles Dodgers over the last little bit. And what I want to be able to do today is just take a little bit of a big picture of where things are at. And in particular, we're going to look at the offensive side of things. We might address a little bit of the pitching things, but I want to focus primarily on the position player side of things. We are a week into spring training. Now, a week into spring training, who do we see as being perhaps the front runners for some of the races that we had talked about on this roster, potentially being a battle for this team? For the second base position, who is leading the second base position at this point? Or is anybody leading at the second base position? How should we read spring training stats? What are some of the things that we should be looking at primarily? It's going to be some of the things that we're going to be able to talk about, second base. And then the other position that I want to be able to talk about, because there actually was a roster move that I did not get to address in the previous show that I want to make sure that you guys are aware about, is the fourth outfield spot, because that is still in question for the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'll be talking about what we think is going to happen down that path. What are some of the things that we want to be looking for going forward? And so we're going to be doing a lot of that talk. Really grateful to be able to do this show for you guys. I have not had the chance to be able to listen to Casey's shows, so I don't know what he's talked about in his show. I know he had Coach Holt on. I know he had Mark Watkins on the other day, but I don't really know what exactly they have. So perhaps I can provide you with a little bit of a different opinion for you guys. First off, thank you guys for joining us. Carlos Garcia, Honey Oates, thank you for joining us. Yes, if you are in the California area, highly recommend you checking out the Ontario Tower Buzzers when they open up their season. I believe I actually don't know if they're at home or not, but they're going to be starting in early April. First games are either going to be the 2nd or 3rd of April if they are at home. Otherwise, they'll be on the road, and they'll start that following Tuesday. They are coming up with their beginning of the season. If you're in the California area, I can't recommend it enough. The stadium looks absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for joining us. Tark the Shark, Craig Osterberg, Daniel Berry, Sports Highlights, and Craig Osterberg. Thank you for joining us as well. So, What I want to be able to do is just provide you guys with a little bit, just take a little bit of a step back. And let's reevaluate what exactly we were looking at for the roster in general going into spring. And the reason why I want to be able to do this is because I want us to remember what exactly we were looking at, especially on the position player side. So what I'm going to do really quick, as we do on the shows, we're going to cut over to this screen right here. Now, this player, we're going to get to him in a little bit. That's going to be towards the end part of the show. But really, if we look at the overall scale of this roster, I think there are 10 spots that are pretty much locked in at this point. You have 8 different starters that are guaranteed to be locked in, assuming there's no injuries. Ohtani, Smith, Betts, Freeman, Muncy, Teo, Pages, and Tucker. Those are absolute locks to be locked in. You have Dalton Rushing as your backup catcher, and Miguel Rojas is going to be on this roster, assuming everything else is fine. The question that we have with the rest of this roster, there's a couple of different spots that are potentially open. I think there's 2 infield spots and 1 outfield spot that is potentially available for this roster. You have and this is going to be what the primary battle that we're going to be talking about and focusing on today, and what we're going to be focused on most of spring. This is Alex Freeland versus Ha-Seong Kim. These two, I believe, are pretty clearly fighting for the second base position against right-handed hitters. That platoon role, the plus side of the platoon, where a majority of the bats are going to come. It's Kim versus Freeland. We're going to be diving into some of their early spring numbers in just a little bit. They are fighting for a particular roster spot. I believe there also is a roster spot for a right-handed infielder. And this is not guys that are listed on here, but this is your non-roster invites. Guys like a Santiago Espinal or a Nick Senzel, or potentially, if he gets opportunities, which he hasn't gotten a whole lot of opportunities, potentially like an Austin Gauthier could be fighting for that. I think he's much less likely just because the organization did not invite him as part of the non-roster invites. I think it's Senzel and it is a Santiago Espinal that are fighting potentially for a roster spot. The reason why I say right-handed is because Max Muncy needs some days off. Easiest way to be able to give him days off is against left-handed pitchers where he struggles a lot. That's when you could throw a right-handed batter and be able to take advantage of the plus side of the platoon. Plus, both of those players are hitting well so far in spring. We'll dive into their numbers as well in a little bit. The last roster, so you have Kim versus Freeland. You have Santiago Espinal versus Nick Senzel. I believe they're fighting potentially for a roster spot, at least until Tommy Edman gets back. And then a 4th outfield spot. You are looking for a 4th outfielder. And so one of these guys, whether it's Kim or whether it's the 4th outfielder, needs to have the ability to play center field, and you feel comfortable with him going out and playing center field, at least for a short time in case there is some type of injury to an Andy Pages. Nobody else that's currently penciled into the roster can play center field. You need somebody to be able to back up that off the bench if absolutely necessary. So we'll be diving into that in just a little bit. That is what the roster is right now. Now let's talk a little bit about what are some of the things that we were looking for in this spring. And what I want to be able to do first is let's talk a little bit about the second base position in general. And let's talk about Freeland versus Ha-Seong Kim, because I want to be able to at least frame this in the aspect of what were we looking for going into spring. And what perhaps are these players exceeding at? What are some of these players that are doing that as well? And what are some of the things that perhaps are not doing quite as well, or some of the things that maybe we want to see a little bit more from each one of these players? Let's first talk about Ha-Seong Kim. First off, he's off to the WBC. He is no longer part of the Dodgers spring training roster because he's going to be playing for Team Korea over in the World Baseball Classic. Absolute best of luck to Ha-Seong Kim. I'm going to be watching his at-bats closely. You has to take some of the numbers that he puts in there with at least a little bit of grain of salt, or at least look at the pitching competition that Kim is going to be facing up against when he is in spring training. And this is the complicated part about spring training, is because guys face a wide variety of pitchers. They can face guys that are major league ready. They can face, for example, opposing pitchers can face an Edwin Diaz. They can face a Tanner Scott. They can face all these different guys. Or it could be guys that could be coming up from the minor leagues that might not be quite as good. There is similar variability that comes over from the World Baseball Classic, where you're playing against guys that might not necessarily be major league players, might not exactly be the quality of players that would even be at the minor league level. And so you have to take some of those numbers with a grain of salt. But you have to be able to look at the at-bat quality and see how Kim is doing relative to some of the competition that he has over there. A lot of that is outside of the Dodgers' control. So let's take a little bit of a step back. What were we looking for Ha-Seong Kim going into the spring training? What were some of the flaws that Kim had? First off, Kim as a player, great defensively. I think we all understood and knew just how good of a defender that he was, and he is absolutely showcasing that. Just last year, using some of the metrics that you can utilize, especially at second base, he has 9 defensive runs saved, 4 outs above average, and 3 fielding run value in just 45 games at second base. That equates, if you go to 162, you're talking about a defensive run saved in the 20s. That is elite type of second base defense. Kim is always a great defensive second baseman. But one of the question marks that you had going into the season is, what is he going to be defensively in center field? Because Kim, as an option for center field, opens up additional flexibility to where if you compare Kim and Freeland, and they're exactly the same, and you need somebody that can help back up and play center field, Freeland does not offer that. Kim does offer that. And what we saw is, I think it was in the game against Arizona, we saw a couple of really solid plays for Ha-Seong Kim in center field. It was great to be able to see. We haven't seen a whole lot for him in center field. Last year in center field, he had 17 games. It was -1 defensive run save, -2 outs above average. But if he has made improvements with that, that's going to be an added benefit for him. That was one of the things to watch. Made the 2 plays that he needed to, and they were really nice plays. Still want to be able to see more, and I'm curious to see if Team Korea will play him center field. My guess is he'll probably be playing on the infield. That's something to look out for. Offensively, what were some of the areas that Ha-Seong Kim was struggling at? And this is going to be a similar theme with both him and Alex Freeland. It's the swing and miss. It was Ha-Seong Kim with his offensive skill set that he has. He is not a massive power threat in this lineup, or at least that's not what we expect him to be able to be. Last year, he did hit 8 home runs combined between Oklahoma City and the major league level. But in a little bit, it was 300 and I'm doing math in my head, 339 plate appearances in the season for him. He's got decent enough power, but it hasn't always translated to the big league level. What he does have is supposedly has really good bat-to-ball skills, and he has great speed to be able to take advantage of that. So the question is, how do you be able to maximize some of the really good stuff that Ha-Seong Kim does, that some of those bat-to-ball skills, this elite speed that he is able to play with? One of the things that you have to be able to do, especially if you're not hitting for an extraordinary amount of power, is you have to be able to cut back on the swing and miss. Just a little bit of a review. At Oklahoma City last year, it was a 25% strikeout percentage and a 30.6 strikeout percentage at the major league level. That was too high for Ha-Seong Kim. One of the things that we had to be looking at for Kim going into the spring is we have to be looking at how well is he cutting down on that component of his game. If he can cut down on that component of his game, I think that's going to take the upside that Kim has and pushes him to another level. That is Kim. That was the outlook of what we were looking at going into the spring, or at least what I was looking at going into the spring. With Alex Freeland, defensively, let's talk about defensively, just because we talked about defensively with Kim. Defensively, played second, played third, has played a lot of short at the minor league level, and they're continuing to play him at short, in part to give him some playing time, but also they want to make sure that they continue to have that in his repertoire and have some of that versatility. Let's say something happens to a Mookie Betts. Having Alex Freeland as a defensive-ready shortstop is going to be something that's going to be of ton of value to this team. But you look at some of the defensive numbers that Freeland had, and let's look at primarily second base. Put up 2 defensive runs saved, 1 outs above average, 1 fielding run value in just 15 games. If you equate that over the large scale of a full season, not really fair to do so. But if you were to be able to do that, you're talking about a really good defensive second baseman as well for Alex Freeland. Defensively at third base, 1 outs above average, 1 fielding run value. Again, positive defensively. Alex Freeland we see as a positive defender. Perhaps and probably not as good at second base as a Ha-Seong Kim as a defensive player, but still a really solid defensive player that Alex Freeland has been able to be. So what was some of the things that were plaguing Alex Freeland going forward? It was again similar to Ha-Seong Kim, his strikeout percentage. at the major league level, it was at 36.1%, higher than what Kim's was last year. And what Casey and I had looked at and primarily diagnosed is you look at the type of player that Alex Freeland is. He is a very patient hitter, almost to the point of being passive. And we're going to be getting to that. What is the difference between passivity and selectivity? Because I think that is going to be something that's going to be really important to be able to watch for Alex Freeland, a little bit more nuance. And I think with Alex Freeland, especially at his first taste at the major league level, very difficult to be able to make that, especially with his swing percentage. Swing percentage at the major league level was sitting about 37, 38%. It was very low for him in comparison to a lot of other teams, which works out if pitchers are a little bit more wild. But what happens if pitchers are a little bit more effective? Does that cut back on some of the swing and miss, or cut back on some of your ability to go ahead and make contact? And you saw Alex Freeland with his in-zone contact percentage drop down pretty dramatically at the big league level. Similar situation to what happened with a Dalton Rushing, where once he got to the major league level, in-zone contact percentage dropped down quite a bit, and that's certainly something to be able to watch for him. And so with Freeland and with Kim, both of them have swing and miss concerns that we have. So the question that I have for spring, and when we are evaluating each one of these players, is what do we look at for the metric to be able to measure? Is this player improved? Is this player doing some of the things that we want him to be able to do? Do we gauge it based off of the spring training overall statistics? Or do we look at very specific aspects of their game to be able to see, hey, has this player made some improvements? And the reason why I bring that up is because we are dealing, at least at this point, with really small sample sizes. And you talk about this I mention this all the time, but I think it is really relevant to be able to bring up, is it is very difficult and it can be often foolish to take a very small sample size and make an inference of what that's going to mean for the grand total. You just have a small picture of what that player is. You don't have a grand picture of where it is. So let's look at the numbers really quick, just because I want to bring the overall numbers to where it's at. We're going to start with Kim, see what his spring training numbers are, because they're absolutely phenomenal. And let's go ahead and cut over to me, because I want to go ahead and zoom in on this for you guys. Make sure that you guys can go ahead and see this. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that right there. Kim on the spring training. And these are going to be the numbers that we're going to have for the next couple of weeks until Hae-Sung Kim is back. 13 plate appearances for Hae-Sung Kim. 462 on base percentage with a 692 slugging, a 198 WRC plus. Really solid numbers. If you just look at the overall offensive production that Hae-Sung Kim has been able to produce, it has been phenomenal. And there's been a lot of different things. He's been able to get a lot of singles. That's what he's been able to do. A couple of really good ones. He also, in that home run that he hit against the White Sox, I believe is what it was, that was a really good swing that Kim was able to get to, or inside pitch right on the corner, inside part of the zone. Kim was able to take that out and hit a home run. That was a great aspect. He also stole a couple of bases. He's shown a lot of great defensive aspects to where you get really excited about what Kim has been able to do because of the offensive upside that he has. And so you look at the 198 WRC plus. You stole a couple of bases. Great playing defensively, and you look at some of the upside that what Kim could possibly be able to provide for you as a specific player. Now, before we get into some of the other numbers, and I'm zooming in really quick for Freeland's numbers just so you guys can go ahead and see, let's look at what Freeland's numbers were entering the game today. Entering the game today, Alex Freeland is batting .222 with a 467 on base percentage, a 333 slugging, and a 129 WRC plus. Pretty good numbers for Alex Freeland. If you're comparing just by WRC plus, Kim has the advantage over Alex Freeland, at least entering into the game today. Alex Freeland during the game today had a double. He also had a line out, and then I think it was a ground out that he had where his 3 plate appearances today went 1 for 3 with a double. That will probably boost up what his numbers are overall. So you have a couple of really good performances that you have right there. Freeland, Kim, both performing pretty well early this spring. Now let's dig underneath the surface and let's talk a little bit about why I don't necessarily want to prioritize those statistics
And I want to look at something else particularly. And the reason why I want to look at something else particularly is if you're looking at those statistics, you're looking at Kim, 13 plate appearances. You're looking at Alex Freeland, 15 plate appearances. I talk about this all the time, small sample sizes. I don't make a judgment just based off of that small of a sample size. I think it could provide you a lot of insight. I think it could provide you with some of the tools, with some of the upside that these players have been able to provide. But you're talking about a 4 or 5 game sample for each one of these players, and I think you could look at any player with 4 or 5 game samples and it not be completely representative of how good the player actually is. So what can we look at to be able to get a much larger picture of how good a player actually is, or at least as best as we can with some of these numbers of how good of a player these players actually are? I think there is other statistics that provide a little bit of a better insight into each one of these players, and we'll be talking about that in just a second. First off, with some of the numbers, here's a couple of other things that I'm at least keeping an eye on that I want you guys to be able to notice. One thing with Kim,
He hasn't walked at all, which totally fair. 13 plate appearances, not really expecting a whole lot. Struck out a little bit, and we'll get into this in just a second. This is not what I'm going to be looking at primarily for each one of these guys. 714 batting average on balls in play is really high for Ha-Seong Kim. Not going to fault him. He's taken advantage of what he has, and we're going to be looking at some of the batted ball characteristics. But this is not going to be something that's going to be able to be replicated going forward for Ha-Seong Kim. Just something to be able to keep an eye out for. With Alex Freeland, it's 286. 20% strikeout percentage, still relatively high. He's walked quite a bit, especially early in spring. Got plate appearances, especially with a couple of minor league players to be able to keep an eye out for. One thing that I want to be able to look at, and this is the thing that we're going to be focusing on primarily, is we're going to look at batted ball quality, and we're also going to be looking at this table right here. And we're not going to necessarily be using these numbers because I have my updated statistics taking into account the games today. But what we're going to be looking at primarily is swing decisions. Because when I look, and the reason why I built the premise as I did is because when we're talking about Alex Freeland and we're talking about Ha-Seong Kim, the importance of what I am looking for in particularly for each one of these players, I already know that they're good defenders at second base. Now, you could say Ha-Seong Kim, better defender at second base, has the ability to play center field. Adding the ability to play center field is an additional thing that Ha-Seong Kim has that he didn't do as well last year. That's an added benefit. But him being able to play well at the second base position, I already knew that. Alex Freeland being able to play well defensively at the second base position, based off the numbers last year, already knew that. The thing that I'm concerned about with each one of these guys is what is their swing and miss ability, and do they still have the same swing and miss concerns for both of them? And in order to do that, I'm not going to look at strikeout percentage or walk percentage because you're looking at a strikeout percentage or walk percentage of 15 plate appearances. That's not a whole lot. You strike out for Ha-Seong Kim at 38.5% strikeout percentage. I think that it isn't fair to look at that just for 13 plate appearances and say, this is not good, it's not improving. What I want to do is be able to look at these numbers because what this does is this looks at a per pitch basis. So for example, with Alex Freeland, instead of saying he's had 15 plate appearances, let's look at that. He's had 71 pitches thrown to him. This is entering the game today. Now you're starting to talk a little bit about a better sample size for Alex Freeland to be able to make an evaluation. The same thing with Ha-Seong Kim. Instead of looking at 13 plate appearances, he's got 54 pitches that he has been thrown. It's not a lot. It's not something to base everything off of for each one of these players, but it provides a better sample to do an evaluation, especially with the thing that we are most concerned about with each one of these guys, their ability to swing and miss. So what do each one of these numbers look like? And we're going to be looking at that for both of these players. We're also going to be introducing a couple of the other players that are fighting for roster spots in just a second. But what I have done for this, and the reason why I did this, and it took a little bit of time after the game, is because I wanted to update the numbers, especially from today's game for each one of the players. And we're going to be looking at this chart in right here for a lot of these players. So this is something that I have. This is I'm going to go through each one of these, define what each one of these are. Very technical, but I think it's going to be important for us to be able to do an evaluation. This is each one of the players. So we have a lot of guys fighting for roster spots. Freeland, Kim, Espinal, Miguel Rojas. I only put him on here not because he's fighting for a roster spot, but because he's fighting for perhaps the everyday second base role until Tommy Edman is back. Ryan Fitzgerald also fighting for a roster spot. Nick Senzel put Dalton rushing, not because he's fighting for a roster spot, because you have to evaluate him. Ryan Ward and Michael Ciani. So we have plate appearances. We have OPS. The reason why I have OPS instead of WRC Plus is because WRC Plus will not be updated with today's statistics until tomorrow. So until then, we're going to be using OPS. The number of pitches that each player has been thrown, and then we're going to be getting into this. So what we have right here is we have swing percentage. This is the percentage of time that you're throwing a pitch that you actually swing. Then we have a couple of statistics. If you see O dash, that is out of zone whatever percentage. So for example, this one, O swing percentage, this is out of zone swing percentage. This is the percentage of times in which a pitch is outside of the strike zone that you actually swing. Obviously, the lower that number is, the better. The Z swing percentage, this is the in-zone swing percentage, meaning the number of pitches that are inside the zone. The percentage that you actually swing at those pitches. Of the pitches inside the zone, what is your swing percentage on those pitches? Generally speaking, the higher that number is, the better it's going to be. Swing percentage, just looking at all pitches regardless, what is the percentage that you actually swing at that? Then we get into contact percentage, meaning the times that you actually swing, what is the percent time that you actually make contact with the baseball? Contact percentage. We also have out of zone contact percentage. If the pitch is thrown outside the zone, you swing at it. What is the percentage of time that you make contact with that? We have the in zone contact percentage. Percent of the time that a pitch is thrown inside the zone. What percentage of the time do you make contact with that? And then I also threw in there swinging strike percentage. This is the amount of times that you swing and miss divided by pitches are thrown. It's not a perfect statistic, especially for hitters. I think it's much better for pitchers, but it's still relevant for us to be able to look at. The reason why we're looking at this again is because we can get a little bit of a better sample size. 82, 54 for Freeland and Kim respectively, in comparison to 15 and 13 plate appearances overall in general. We'll get into some of the batted ball quality in just a second. So what we have right here is I have it color coded as well. Red, generally speaking, is good. More blue, generally speaking, is bad. And what we're going to look at is we're going to look at Hae-Sung Kim first, which is this one right here, row number 4 for those of you who are keeping track at home. First off, 13 plate appearances, 1.154 OPS. Great for Hae-Sung Kim. What are we looking at for the swing and miss percentage? And what are we looking at for just him as an offensive player as a whole? One thing you're going to notice about Kim, he has, at least so far this spring, been a very aggressive hitter. He has swung at 57.4% of the pitches that were thrown his way. Over half of the percent of the time, he's swinging the bat. Typically speaking, just as a relative skill to be able to compare that to, the general swing percentage, MLB average, is about 45%. He is about 10 to 12% higher than that. So, at which pitches is Hae-Sung Kim swinging at? He's swinging at a lot of pitches in the zone. About 81% of the pitches inside the zone, Hae-Sung Kim is swinging at. He also is swinging quite a lot at pitches outside the zone, or at least has so far this spring. About 36% of those pitches he swung outside of the zone. How is he doing with contact percentage? And I think this is when you're looking at the offensive component of Hae-Sung Kim. He's not somebody that's going to draw a whole lot of walks because he is a much more aggressive hitter at the plate. Again, 57.5% swing percentage, going to swing a lot. Contact percentage has actually been quite low for Hae-Sung Kim, at least to what he had in his very brief 13 plate appearances. It's 37.7 or 67.7% contact percentage for Kim. In zone is one of the things that you want to be able to look at. 81% is in zone contact percentage for Kim, 40% outside the zone, which especially with Kim, 36% outside the zone swing percentage, only making contact 40% of the time. That's well below league average. Meaning, when we're looking at Kim as an offensive player so far this spring, he's swinging a lot, he's being aggressive,
but he's also chasing a lot outside of the zone. And when he's chasing outside of the zone, he's not hitting pitches outside of the zone as well, at least to what his numbers showcase so far this spring in the very small sample size that we have. Let's compare that to somebody like an Alex Freeland. Alex Freeland, also fighting for the second base spot, also struggled with his K percentage. What did we notice about Alex Freeland? He's almost the exact inverse of what Ha-Seong Kim is, meaning Kim, very aggressive hitter, looking to make contact on just about everything. Freeland is a much more selective, sometimes bordering on passive hitter. And when we talked about his swing percentage was at 37.8% at the MLB level last year. That has actually dropped down in spring, in part because of some of the pitches that he's gotten, but also he has made an intentional choice, at least so far this spring, to be a little bit more patient at the plate, because he's only swung at 28% of the pitches that he's thrown. He has not swung the bat a whole lot. In the zone percentage has been about 48%. It's roughly around the same of what Kim has gotten as far as in zone percentage. Now, with the zone percentage that I used, I'm using it based off of what I saw with the boxes on Baseball Savant. Perhaps this number could be slightly off, but it's around the same of what Kim has gotten. If we look at this, and this is going to be the thing that is of great benefit for Alex Freeland, he has swung at less than 5% of the pitches that have been thrown outside the zone to him so far this spring. Meaning with Freeland, he is not expanding the zone at all this spring. That is a great sign. You compare that to Kim, is at about 36%. Alex Freeland is about 5% outside the zone swing percentage. And he's also making contact if he does go ahead and swing outside the zone. Inside the zone, though, is a much different story. Whereas with Ha-Seong Kim swinging inside the zone at 81% of the pitches, Alex Freeland is only about 52.5% so far this spring. We'll get into that in just a minute. If we look at his contact percentage, Alex Freeland currently making contact with about 82.5% of the pitches. All at once, only a couple swings outside the zone he's made contact with. In fact, I think it's just 2 pitches outside the zone that he's swung at, both of which he made contact with. Not a huge sample size at all. But inside the zone, a little bit larger of a sample size. It's about 81%, the exact same of what Ha-Seong Kim has done inside the zone. So the question is, at least from a strike throwing perspective, or at least the ability to limit some of the swing and miss, if you're just comparing the numbers that Freeland and Kim have at this point, Freeland is not chasing outside the zone, but making about, at least to this point in spring training, the same percentage of in-zone contact that Kim has. Kim, a little bit more of an aggressive player, going to swing in the zone a lot more, but also going to chase a lot more in comparison between the two. So that is what we're looking at so far in spring. Again, just 82 pitches, 54 pitches for Ha-Seong Kim. This is not a large enough sample size to make a determination of how good these players are or what the final result is going to be. But I think it provides you with a little bit of a better insight of to who these players actually are. Freeland is a much more patient player than what Ha-Seong Kim is. Kim, a little bit more aggressive. Perhaps you want to see a little bit more aggressiveness from Alex Freeland. 28% swing percentage likely is not going to be the case going forward for him. And this brings up a question. We're going to pull up something else because I think this is going to be important, something to be able to watch for Alex Freeland, is the question between passivity and selectivity. And this is where you have to go through each one of the different live at-bats to be able to go and see what he's actually doing. Because I went through each one of the live at-bats that Alex Freeland had, obviously to make some of those numbers be able to work out for me. And one of the things that I look out for with Alex Freeland is where are some of the swing and misses having for him? And what is perhaps one of the reasons why Alex Freeland is a little bit more selective? And the thing that I want to point out too is actually this chart right here, because I think this is important for us to be able to understand. I think intuitively we have insight information as to what this actually means, but I don't know if we often apply that or we just look in broad scale general terms of this. This is a chart that can be utilized. And what I want you to be able to look at is there's 4 different parts of the overall zone in which a pitch can be thrown. The first one, you have 1 through 9 right here. This is the heart of the zone. If pitches are thrown in this area, this is in general where baseball hitters can do the absolute most damage. This is put up on a tee for major league players. If it's put up in one of these zones right towards the middle portion of the zone, that's the heart percentage. That is where hitters can do the most damage. You also have the shadow percentage. Shadow percentage being inside and outside of the strike zone, but more towards the outside portion of the zone. You also have the chase window that we see right here, 21 through 29, 31 through 39, waste percentage, or waste zone, I should say. Alex Freeland at this point is not swinging at pitches in the waste zone. He's also really not swinging at pitches in the chase zone. But here's the thing to be able to watch out for with Alex Freeland is what is he doing in the shadow of the zone? Because if we look, and Alex Freeland has had 4 swings and misses in this spring. I believe 2 came from the Diamondbacks and 2 came from the San Francisco Giants game. And for those swings, all of those swings and misses came, I believe, in the shadow part of the zone, or at least really close to the shadow portion of the zone. Meaning that Alex Freeland, as a player, I think is being selective and looking for pitches not that are just inside the strike zone. You see his zone swing percentage is 52.5%. He's not just looking for pitches that are within this green box. I think he's looking for pitches that are more in the heart of the zone, pitches that are a little bit more towards the center of the zone. Because one of the things, and we don't have the exact statistics, we just have general zone swing percentage and zone contact percentage. One of the things that I would be curious about, especially in spring, is what is his percent, or what is his contact percentage on pitches in the shadow of the zone. Because in order for Alex Freeland to be effective as a major league player, especially with the approach that he has to be able to do damage. He has to be able to be effective in the shadow of the zone. He can lay off all the pitches in the chase. He can lay off all the pitches in the waste. But if he cannot hit in pitches in the shadow of the zone, it's going to be a lot more challenging, because pitchers at the major league level are going to be a lot more effective at getting their pitches to be in that portion of the zone. And I think that's where at least we've seen a little bit where there has been swing and miss. That is where the swing and miss has come for Alex Freeland as a whole. With Kim, if we go back and pull up this chart, there's a lot more variability with what we're seeing with Kim and his swing percentage, and where we've seen some of the swing and miss coming from a little bit more outside, whereas he's more prone to swing at pitches in a little bit more of the chase zone. So when I'm looking at with this, and especially with some of the live at-bats that we're seeing with Alex Freeland, how does he do with pitches in more of the shadow of the zone, more towards the edges of the zone? If he can make decent to relative contact within this one, while also being able to keep his approach, that is going to be the best case scenario for Alex Freeland as a hitter. That is where some of the swing and misses has gone, which means it's at least a little bit more of a positive thing, because he's not swinging and missing as much with pitches in the heart of the zone. But what is he able to do with the pitches outside the zone? And then with Ha-Seong Kim, how can he limit some of the chase that he has on pitches that are outside the zone? If Kim can limit some of the pitches outside the zone that he's swinging at, that's going to lead to so much better results and a much lower strikeout percentage for him. With Freeland, he can keep his selectivity, but he has to be able to do well and win the shadow of the zone. Those are the things to be able to look out, some of the inner battles that we're looking out with the swing and miss for both Freeland and with Kim, at least according to the numbers. With Kim, we're not going to see any numbers going forward for the next little bit, but certainly something to keep an eye out for. Just bringing in some of the other options for infield, let's look at Miguel Rojas really quick. Some of the numbers that he has: 781 OPS, rough day for him at the plate, but he's swinging about 43.5% of the time. Zone per swing percentage, 73%. He's making a lot of contact inside the zone. That's one of the things you would expect for a Miguel Rojas.
contact type of hitter. He's going to make contact inside the zone 85% of the time. Overall contact, made contact every time it's pitched inside the zone. Not too concerned with Miguel Rojas. Santiago Espinal is a fascinating one to be able to keep an eye out for. He's somebody also not a huge swing percentage, just under 40% so far this spring, able to make a lot of contact inside the zone. When we're looking at Espinal and when we're looking at Senzel, because I think they're fighting for similar roster spots, the main thing that I'm looking at is how do they do against left-handed pitching. I don't have those numbers pulled up, unfortunately, but that's going to be the thing, because I think that's going to be what the role on the Los Angeles Dodgers is going to be. Espinal made some good plays defensively, has looked really well. I am still expecting Santiago Espinal to be able to make this team coming out of camp, but that does not undermine what Nick Senzel and his 1.136 OPS has done so far this spring. He's made some really good contact, and let's actually get into some of the exit velo contact numbers, because what I have right here is each one of the results that these players has had, and we're going to look at some of the exit velos and what we have. So this is the actual results for Santiago Espinal. I think the actual, rather than looking at just what was the end result on the field, what is their OPS, what is their WRC plus, let's look at some of the batted ball quality, because I think that provides a little bit of a better indicator. We've seen Espinal get a couple of singles right here. We got a couple of doubles. He's posted a 104.3 on the exit velo. He had a double home run in 16 out of 30 ballparks. Done pretty well. Exit velos sitting around 92. 8.8 launch percentage. These are just general averages. And then an expected batting average, given all of this, taking into account strikeouts and then non-batted ball data, is about 286 expected batting average for Santiago Espinal. Nick Senzel has put up some really solid exit velos, flashed a 111 on a single, a 108 on a double, 105. Really good exit velos. Had a home run in the game today. Would have been a home run out of 30 out of 30 ballparks. Expected home runs based on the quality of contact that he's had, 1.8 home runs for him expected during the day. But let's look primarily at Kim versus Freeland, because we went over some of the swing decision type of bases, and we're looking at just the swing decisions, the swing and miss decision. I think the edge actually has to go, despite what the overall results say, at least so far, I would prefer the outlook of Alex Freeland. I know the swing percentage is way low, but I think his ability to not swing at pitches outside the zone so far have been phenomenal. If he does that, it's all about what he does inside the zone. And even if it's an 81% in-zone contact percentage, without swinging at pitches outside the zone, that is going to be remarkable for Alex Freeland going forward. I think with that aspect, Freeland, at least in the swing and miss decision, has the advantage so far in spring. Let's look at the exit velos. First off, let's look at spring. Let's look at Kim so far this spring. Overall, it's been about 92 exit velo, about the same for Alex Freeland, 92.5, averaging out all their different exit velos. Kim had a 104.6 single, also his home run in his last plate appearance in the Cactus League so far was about a 105, was a home run, 30 out of 30 ballparks. I don't necessarily know why. It was a 380 expected batting average. That's what it said on Baseball Savant. I think that just takes into account launch angle, distance. That also takes into account if there's other factors, perhaps wind. I don't necessarily know what was going on into this expected batting average, but it worked out for him. He's had a couple of really good ones. You look at a couple of the singles have been a little bit lucky for him. There was a 111 expected batting average, 230. But overall, especially with a couple of these singles, 920, 880, 470 expected batting average. There's been some pretty good quality of contact for Ha-Seong Kim. And if you look at the launch angle, it's basically a lot of stuff that is towards the ground, not hit with a ton of distance. The only exception being the home run that he's had, which would have been a home run at every single ballpark. About a 92 exit velo. With Alex Freeland, it's not necessarily stuff that is hit on the ground. He's able to get at least a little bit more launch angle with his 11.5 average launch angle for him, with more distance on average, about 220 feet, with an expected batting average of 313. He also, and this is a couple things to look out, and the reason why I don't necessarily look at the overall results of spring training, rather I look at some of the quality of contact. His flyout that he had in the game yesterday, which I was in attendance at against the San Francisco Giants in the first inning, would have been a home run in 26 out of 30 ballparks. And it had a 680 expected batting average.
the outfield in San Francisco at the spring training facility at Scottsdale Stadium is huge. That was just a normal flyout. But if you look at the overall characteristics of it, 104 exit velo, really solid for him. He also had a double during the game today. Would have been home run, 25 out of 30 ballparks. 730 expected batting average for him, 109 on the exit velo. He also had a 107.2 batting average single, good exit velo there. Had another 337-foot line out during the game that was not televised today. Sac fly, decently hit, although more of a situational baseball type of thing. Had another double right there. A lot of walks, especially early during spring training. This is what we're looking at with the exit velos. Still, obviously, way too early to make total complete insight or overview of that. But relatively similar exit velos for each. Different approach of how they get their exit velos, or at least where the batted ball is actually going. Kim, much more on the ground. Alex Freeland, a little bit more so in the air, line drive type of range is what you're seeing for Freeland so far, which I think is why the expected batting average is a little bit higher so far for him. Espinal, here's the batted ball quality that we're seeing. Not insane exit velos, but a little bit more consistent in that when he's making quality of contact in between that 85 to 105 type of range. Nick Senzel has flashed in 111. Great to be able to see that for him. Ryan Fitzgerald is another fascinating one because especially early in spring, really good start for him. Double, a triple, had a single, couple of walks for Ryan Fitzgerald. Remember, he came over from the Minnesota Twins and made his debut last year and is still fighting for a roster spot. Flashed a 109 exit velo for him. These are some of the numbers that we're looking at. He certainly, I think, is not the front runner, especially when they are playing him. They're playing him a little bit later in games, or at least have played him a little bit later in games. That usually is an indicator that they probably aren't taking a close look at him on being on the major league club, because later in games, obviously, placing a lot more minor league competition as opposed to some of the major league competition. This is what we're seeing at so far. I think if we look at the overall grand scheme of things, first off, I think people who have made a determination or concluded for a fact that Hae-Sung Kim has won this roster spot, I actually do not think that is the case. I think if you look at the swing and miss ability that we're seeing for Kim, I think it is still, at this point, in the very small sample size that we saw, too high for Kim to where I have concerns about that. I think there are concerns with the overall 714 batting average in balls in play. That obviously will not continue for him going forward. So the question is, overall, on the grand scheme of things, based on what we saw a lot of upside for Hae-Sung Kim, but are we confident that he fixed the things that he needed to fix during the course of the offseason? I think he added and improved some of his ability to play center field, which certainly will play a role going forward. But I still have some question marks, and that's going to be something I'm going to be watching in the World Baseball Classic. I don't think it has been officially decided that Hae-Sung Kim is getting the second base position immediately. I still think there is some competition. Now, with that being said, I also don't think that means that Alex Freeland is going to get the second base position. Now, I've been somebody who's been a little bit leaning towards Alex Freeland, as you guys probably have gotten some of that insight as to winning the second base position going into spring, because I like some of his swing decisions. His overall, the swing percentage for Alex Freeland still is really low, to the point where I think once he gets and faces against major league pitching, I think he's going to have probably some of the similar struggles, because I think pitchers at the major league level are going to get it in the shadow of the zone a lot more efficiently and effectively than what some of the pitchers that he's facing at the minor league level are going to be able to do. That being said, some of the batted ball quality I think has been relatively solid, and I think he's gotten a little bit unlucky. You even go back to the game that he had, I think it was the first game of spring training, there was a near double that he had. At bat ended up being in a pop out, but he was just foul. I think there's been a couple of batted balls that actually have been really solid for Alex Freeland, to where I'm positive about that. Also, his ability not to chase outside the zone has not just been good, it's been elite so far this spring. If he can pair that with good in-zone quality of contact, you're going to see a really good player in Alex Freeland. He's somebody that's fighting for a roster spot. I don't think necessarily Santiago Espinal is fighting for that second base spot,
but I think he's in a really good position to be fighting for the third base spot, and had a really good game during the day today. I think he reached base 3 times during the day today over when he was playing against the Texas Rangers. Double, walk, and a single, or at least that's the last 3 plate appearances that I have right here. He is somebody to be able to watch. Keep an eye out for Nick Senzel. The reason why I don't think he is in the front runner over an Espinal, the reason why I think Espinal is over Nick Senzel at this point, Espinal, a lot more major league experience. The Dodgers seem to value that to a certain degree. And also, look at Nick Senzel, spent the entirety last year in Oklahoma City for the Dodgers. I think it was a 92 WRC plus. And if you're looking for a specific role, Senzel versus left-handed pitching at the minor league level in the Pacific Coast League, it was about a 770, which was a little bit below league average, just overall WRC, overall OPS for him. League average is about 800. Nick Senzel was about a 770 against left-handed pitching last year in the Pacific Coast League. And so I think with some of the background and with some of the success that Espinal has had, also you look at defensively, comparing the two, the defensive numbers favor, I believe, Espinal, especially what he did last year at the third base position. So that is another battle to be able to look out for. Another thing to be able to look out for is the 4th outfield spot. The reason why I say this is a battle to be able to look out for is because I think going into this season, we had, or at least in my mind, Alex Call was going to be the 4th outfielder for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, the reason why I said that is because Alex Call has shown an ability in the past to play all 3 different defensive outfielders at the MLB level, and has showcased to be somewhere between an average and above average outfielder. We're going to go ahead, I'm going to pull up some numbers for Alex Call just because I think it is important for you guys to be able to see some of the defensive metrics that Alex Call has showcased at the MLB level defensively to this point in his career, because that's going to be one of the most important things to be able to provide as an outfielder. Then we'll get into the discussion of a roster addition that the Dodgers had made. Give me just a second. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom in for you guys so you don't see some of the ads. I really got to buy Fangraphs again. Maybe that'll be something that I'll get coming up pretty soon. So defensively, here's some of the things that we're going to be looking at. He has played a lot of different defensive positions. If you're looking at overall in his outfield career, it's been 9 defensive runs saved, 9 outs above average, 4 fielding run value. You're looking at where he's going to likely have to play this upcoming year. It's likely going to potentially be left field and center field are going to be the 2 options. Last year in left field, he actually didn't grade out well by outs above average and fielding run value. -4 and -4, respectively, 1 defensive run save. However, if you look at his metrics, and this is going to be one of the most important things to look out for with Alex Call, what is his ability to play center field? In 2023, he posted 4 defensive runs saved, 7 outs above average, and 8 fielding run value. Now, those stats are imperfect in and of themselves, but they help try to show you an overall picture, especially if you take a large-scale outlook, and that is in 81 games. In 2023, he was an above-average center fielder, above average to a really good center field. Those metrics are really solid for Alex Call. He has also graded out well in right field before. 3 outs above average, 1 field and run value last year in outfield. I think overall, as an outfielder, Alex Call has been relatively solid. And the reason why this is so important is the outfield for the Los Angeles Dodgers is pretty much set. And not pretty much, it is set. Teoscar Hernandez in left, Andy Pages in center, Kyle Tucker in right field. Unless there is an injury, unless there's something dramatic that happens, that is your outfield for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And what you need is somebody to help fill in the gaps, be a good defensive replacement for some of these guys, and also when they have to fill in the gaps, because it's not just you have to fill in defensively late in the games. That's going to be a vast majority of the time. But there is going to have to be times where you're going to have to step up to the plate. And with Alex Call, one of the things that when he is at his best, he is a good defender, and he can provide you with at least league average offense. If you look at his offensive numbers that he's put up, he's been a 102 WRC plus player in his major league career. Last year, 113 WRC plus in 322 games, or 322 plate appearances. Alex Call,
was really solid overall as a player last year. He's not going to strike out a whole lot. He's going to draw a decent amount of walks. The power isn't going to be elite, but he's going to do enough good things to be able to help fill in the gaps for you. Now, brings up the real question for Alex Call. How healthy is he? And what is his ability to go out and play center field? Because those are the two main question marks. If he is not healthy, if it is not a good thing for him to go out and fill in the outfield, you don't have a lot of other backup options, perhaps besides a Hae-Sung Kim, who's not getting a whole lot of experience and doesn't have a whole lot of playing time in the outfield, in center field at least. There's not a whole lot of playing time to be able to go off of. So if Alex Call is not completely healthy, which they slow played him a little bit, but they have played him in games, so I think there's a little bit more confidence that Alex Call is going to be healthy, ready to go to start the season. But if he does not have the ability, or the Dodgers don't feel comfortable with him playing defensively in center field or defensively around the outfield, that opens up the avenue for the Dodgers to search in other alternative directions, because you can't just have Teo, Pages, and Tucker as your only three outfielders on the roster. You need some backup. You need some coverage. Alex Call provides you with an offensive floor that you feel comfortable with, but that also has to come with a really solid defensive floor. And if the defensive floor is not there, and then it's just the offense in comparison to somebody who has better defense, the Dodgers, at this point in what they need to the roster, are going to take the guy with the defense over the offense for their backup. Now, if you compare that and they can be relatively close, they're going to take the guy that has the advantage for both, which is Alex Call. But what is Alex Call's defensive ability at this point is going to be the question for him in the fourth outfielder. And this brings up another guy that the Dodgers were able to bring in. And this actually happened about a week ago, so this is a little bit late, but I think it's important for you guys to know. And he has not appeared in spring training yet, but the Dodgers added somebody to their 40-man roster. In corresponding move, after they moved Kike Hernandez to the 60-day injured list, the Dodgers added Jack Suwinski onto their major league roster. Jack Suwinski, formerly a Pittsburgh Pirate, he was recently designated for assignment, has 0 minor league options. He is another outfielder, left-handed batter that's going to be fighting for the mix. Now, when you just look at the overall surface numbers, they're not good at all. The past couple of years for Jack Suwinski. Had a really solid 2023 season where he posted a 112 WRC+, really good walk percentage, selective as a player, a good batted ball profile, 2.7 WAR. But the past two seasons, 62 and 55 WRC+ for him with high swing and miss percentage. Why would the Dodgers add a player like this, who has no flexibility, who strikes out a whole lot, whose offensive numbers the past two seasons have been, let's just say it, they've been absolutely terrible for Jack Suwinski. No other way to put it. 182 batting average, 147 batting average for him. And if you're looking at this, 450 plate appearances. Why would they bring in Jack Suwinski? If you dig in underneath the surface with some of the statistics, there actually is some potential reason to be optimistic about him. You look at the barrel percentage, he's still, even despite his poor offensive statistics, batted ball profile actually was pretty solid, about 12%, well above league average. Bat speed, really good bat speed. He does not chase a whole lot, gets a good amount of walks. His batted ball profile is actually relatively solid, and it's been relatively solid for the past couple of years. He makes good swing decisions. He has really good bat speed, barrels up the baseball a whole lot. Also, and this has been pointed out on other shows, highly recommend, go check out some of those shows as well. Batting average and balls in play, really low for Jack Suwinski, 225 and 211. That is not likely to continue for Jack Suwinski going forward, meaning there likely is some potential bounce back for Suwinski going forward. And if you look down, and this is going to be some of the numbers we're going to be looking at, he also has the ability to play center field. Now, the defensive numbers are kind of all over the place. Defensive run save, do not really like Jack Suwinski in the outfield. Outs above average field and run values, great amount as a little bit below league average, but not anything too dramatic, although left field 2024 was not great with the innings that he actually played. I don't think Jack Suwinski is going to be a great defensive player, but he has the ability to play center field. So the question is, if
the Dodgers look at a player like an Alex Call and say that he is not fully healthy and capable of this team being able to provide a defensive floor sustainable enough to where we can substitute him for Teoscar Hernandez late in a game, then perhaps they could look to alternative options. And Jack Suwinski provides you with offensive upside that somebody like a Michael Ciani, who provides you with a great defensive floor, and if he played for a full season at center field, would be a Gold Glove contender at center field. That good of a defensive center fielder. If you look at Jack Suwinski, he's not going to be that, but it has offensive upside to where if he does well and he can be versatile enough, he could potentially platoon well with some of the other options that you have on your roster. He has not played in spring training yet, but he could be part of the mix that the Dodgers are looking at. I'm still not saying it's likely. I think the most likely scenario, especially because we haven't seen him yet in spring training, is likely the Dodgers go ahead, they keep him around, maybe give him a little bit of a look, designate him for assignment, try to keep him around the organization and potentially bring him up, similar to some of the things that they did with the Ben Rortvedt, or they've done with a couple of other guys. But that is something to keep an eye out for, because I think Alex Call, especially with some of the concerns that we had with injury, he's just got to show that he can provide a defensive floor, even if it's not necessarily center field. Let's say Kae-Sung Kim wins a spot on this roster. Kim would have the ability to help back up and reinforce center field. But Alex Call has to be able to showcase a defensive floor enough to be the fourth outfielder. That is one of the things to be able to watch out for, as well as some of the offensive stats. For the fourth outfield, you're looking at a competition between Alex Call, Michael Ciani, very much part of the mix because of his great defensive ability. Offensively, Michael Ciani is not going to be able to provide you much of anything. It's going to be a very, very low floor offensively, at least from what we've seen so far for him at the major league level. It would just be the defensive upside. That's why he is around. And then Jack Suwinski is going to be part of the mix. Another player to keep an eye out for, and they doesn't have a whole lot of time. This would be potentially the way that they could get Freeland and Kim on the roster, is if they felt comfortable enough with Kim playing center field. I don't think that is likely. I think that's more of a backup just in case type of option. But if Freeland wins a spot at second base and they want to carry a Hae-Sung Kim while also being able to carry a Santiago Espinal, Kim would have to take a lot more reps in center field and would be the backup outfielder as part of the mix. And if something happens, they would bring somebody up pretty much immediately after that. Let's say, for example, if something happens to Andy Pages, Kim would help fill in the role for him for that game. Then they would do whatever move they have to do to get another outfielder as part of the mix. I don't think that is likely, but that is something to keep an eye out for going forward as part of this club. Lots of fun competition that is happening in spring. The main takeaways that I want you guys to have is, one, don't just look at the on-field results in and of itself. That was a single, that was a double, that was a home run. Look at the overall broad-scale scope of what is happening on the field, and then look to see if there's very specific improvements from some of the things that you are looking for some of these players to improve upon. With Freeland and Kim, what is their swing and miss ability? For fourth outfielder, with Alex Call, what is his defensive floor that he's able to provide as part of the mix? Those are the battles. Those are some of the insights that you should be looking for spring training. While the results on the field, they're fun, don't necessarily matter. These battles help show you whether players have made the improvements that are needed to be able to make it onto the big league roster, especially for guys that are fighting for that big league roster spot. I've done enough talking. We'll get into some of the comments. I know we've got a couple of super chats. First off, Matt Kramer, can't thank you enough for the super chats that you have. First off, 999 super chat, Austin Brubaker, the troublemaker, great stuff. Thank you very much. And then no other team has somebody of this level, Austin. We Dodgers fans are lucky. I really appreciate it for some of the insight that you're able to have, or at least some of the kind words that you have. That's appropriate way to be able to say that. Can't thank you enough for that. We'll get into a couple of the other comments. If you guys have other questions or some other insights that you guys have had, more than happy to be able to have this conversation. Won't go on too long just because I got to get to bed at some point tonight.
I'm over on the East Coast side. It's not 6:21 here. It is 9:21 here on the East Coast, and I got to be up super early tomorrow, especially with a late night of travel. We'll get into some of your comments right here. Showtime LA, Zaire Hope has been incredible so far. Both him and DePaula have been really fun to be able to watch so far in spring training. You've been able to see some of their upside. With Hope, he had that double. I think it was in the game against Arizona. That was left center field. That was really cool to watch. DePaula has gotten a bunch of hits. Both of those guys, I know Showtime LA, been really cool to what you have. You've also been hyping up a couple of other guys. One thing to note, I know Carson Hobbs had a really rough performance the other day. He had the exact same thing happen last year in 2025. You go back to February 25th, 2025. Carson Hobbs had a very similar rough performance. He then went on to have a 2.09 ERA combined between high A and double A. Don't give up on guys just because they have a rough spring training performance or two. Look at the overall grand picture and allow them to be able to make adjustments. Carson Hobson's still an incredible pitcher. Showtime LA, Rushing and Freeland both had hits today in the game that wasn't televised. Yeah, with Dalton Rushing, he had a home run today during the game that wasn't televised. That was a little bit frustrating. One thing to be able to watch with Rushing, there still is some concern that I have, and this is another thing, another player that I'm watching. If you go back to the in-zone swing percentage, the thing that I'm looking for with Dalton Rushing, and this is still way low from what it should be, is the contact percentage. He's still making good swing decisions. Outside the zone, about 21%. Zone swing percentage, about 71.5%. It is the in-zone contact that is most concerning for me with Dalton Rushing, because at the minor league level, the in-zone contact was about 87%. So far in spring, it's about 72%. Last year at the major league level, it was similarly in the low to mid 70s type of range. This has to come up for Dalton Rushing to have success at the major league level, at least to have consistent enough success to where he's not striking out as much. Outside the zone, contact percentage is not great, but he's also not swinging outside the zone a whole lot. Just 67.7% contact percentage, same contact percentage as Hae-Sung Kim. It's not great so far for Dalton Rushing, but he did have the home run today. You're looking for some of those swing decisions, and especially for Rushing, swing decisions so far this spring have been fine. It's the ability to make contact. That is the big thing for Dalton Rushing, to where he can take his game to the next level of where it can and where it should be based on all the information, all the data, and the player that we know he can be from the minor league level. But really cool that he had the home run during the game today. Really glad that he's able to have success. Obviously rooting for him. Craig Osterberg, Espinal would be my second baseman. He has hit and defended well. Espinal has been great defensively, and he's going to be able to showcase some of his defensive abilities at the second base position. At third base, he can move around. He's a veteran type of player. He provides you with a little bit of a consistent type of floor. We'll see what happens for him. In-zone contact, pretty solid for him. Outside of zone, he's swinging a little bit too much outside the zone, about 29%. Not too bad. But he's also not getting a whole lot of contact outside the zone. He is not necessarily someone where you would expect a ton of offensive upside. He's done extraordinarily well so far in spring. The exit velos aren't elite for him so far in the spring. It's been 105, I think, has been the highest exit velo for him. It's been overall solid for him. But again, remember, past couple of years, 79, 76, and 58 WRC plus, the past 3 years combined. I think he can be a really good bridge option until Tommy Edman is able to come back healthy for the 2026 season. And I think you feel comfortable with Santiago Espinal filling in a role, whether it's at second base, whether it's just to give Max Muncy some days off against left-handed pitching, which Espinal has been above league average in his career at. If he can just do those two things well, Espinal would have been a really good addition to be able to add to the Dodgers mix. I think he's showing a lot of really good signs so far in spring. Just want to caution and make sure that we are remembering exactly the big picture, especially with a long track record that Espinal has. Chuck Huddleston, glad you had made the trip. I'll be there in 2 weeks for 5 games. Yeah, I'm really excited for you with that. Hope you, Chuck, have a great trip over in Arizona. If you guys talked a little bit about the beginning of the show, if you guys have the opportunity to go out to Camelback Ranch, can't recommend it enough. Great experience to be able to go and have. Let's see. Tark to Strock. Doc sounded pretty high on Kim's play the other day. He might have the edge for one of the spots. Very well could. And I think there would be good reason. Kim fits obviously incredibly well into the clubhouse. He's got a lot of unique skill sets that are really good. Speed, ability to steal bases, really good for Ha-Seong Kim. Alex Freeland has that ability, but I don't think we've seen that completely translate at the major league level. To be fair, we haven't seen a whole lot of Alex Freeland at the major league level. But Kim's ability to not just play well defensively at second base, but if he can also play well defensively in center field, then that's going to mean that Alex Freeland has to out-hit Ha-Seong Kim on a much better basis than what he currently has showcased so far. Those are going to be the things to be able to watch out for. I'm a little bit sad Kim is in the WBC because I think it would have been great to see head-to-head competition between Kim and Freeland. Now, all the pressure is on Alex Freeland because all the eyes are going to be watching Alex Freeland in Dodger camp, or at least Doc is going to be watching Alex Freeland's play each and every single day. The hitting coaches are going to be watching Alex Freeland's play every single day. He is going to be measured. We're going to see what Kim has. He set a really high floor on standard what he did this spring, and we're certainly going to be able to watch him in WBC. But Alex Freeland has a real opportunity to make an impression on camp, and it is his to go out there and try to win at least by the performance that he could potentially have this spring. Craig Osterberg likes Noah Miller. He's been absolutely awesome. He's really smooth in the field, as Alex the God had said. Really good defensively on the field right now. Davalon Honey Oates is awesome. Really excited to be able to see him play offensively as a overall contributor as a player. That's going to be the thing to be able to watch for Charles Davalon, is how does his bat actually translate. And it sounds, based on the early reports and based on what people had seen from him when he was in Arkansas, bat is really good. So I'm really excited about that. Honey Oates, how did Jackson Ferris do? Really, I didn't get a chance to be able to watch it. And you could look at some of the numbers. I think it was decent numbers-wise for Jackson Ferris. But because I didn't get a chance to be able to watch it, I'm going to limit some of my analysis. Perhaps Casey can provide a little bit more of an insight to that when he's able to do a show. Perhaps tomorrow, whether that's in the morning or whether that's in the evening. Hopefully he's able to get to a show on that. Young Yi, Tanner looks good in his first time. Pitched for the first time and looked good. Tucker got his first hit as a Dodger. Good notes right there. Tanner Scott looked really good during his appearance. Hoping for a bounce back. That's going to add a lot to this bullpen. If you get Tanner Scott and Edwin Diaz at the back end of the bullpen, both pitching to their potential, it's lights out once you get past the 7th inning and you're facing the Los Angeles Dodgers, especially if an opposing team is down runs or down a run. Al Minerva missed 2 games and to lose both games. Sorry, it was busy. Yeah, you got to be watching some of those games again, Al Minerva. Hopefully the win streak comes back when you're able to watch the games. Chuck Huddleston, Miller's looked good, incredible at shortstop. Bat has held up in spring so far, almost hit it out today. Noah Miller has been awesome so far this spring. If his bat can even be close to league average, the defensive value that Noah Miller provides is extraordinary. And what we've seen so far this spring hasn't just been league average offense, it's been well above league average. He's drawn some walks, he's gotten a few hits. Want to see a little bit more for Noah Miller, perhaps provide a little bit more consistency at the minor league level. But if he provides if he provides some sort of offensive stability at a close to league average basis, his defense is going to carry the rest. And this goes back a little bit into the conversation we had with Alex Call, where Alex Call, he provides a solid offensive floor. You're looking for that defensive floor to be able to match that. With Noah Miller, he's kind of like a little similar to the Michael Ciani type of situation, where he's going to provide a great defensive floor. Michael Ciani, great defensive outfielder. Noah Miller, great defensive shortstop. If he can get that offense just to go up a little bit, and the more that offense goes up, the more the floor is going to raise for Noah Miller as an overall player. Chuck Huddleston, Freeland looks more comfortable so far than last season. Doc said it's slowed down for him. At least the game has slowed down. Certainly seems like that, and hopefully that will continue for him going forward. Chuck Huddleston, did you get a chance, young players recognize you and chat you up? Did a little bit of that with some of the players. Tried to let them do what they had, but I had a brief opportunities to be able to interact with some of the players. Really grateful for those that were able to interact during the time that I have. But just more than anything, I just want these guys to be able to do well and being able to go out and see some of the guys that I know aren't going to make it back to Great Lakes or haven't been back in Great Lakes, but getting the opportunity to be able to see them, to be able to reconnect, it's been really cool for that. Al Minerva, what great problems to have. Kim, Freeland, Espinal, making it difficult. That's the thing that you want, is all these guys playing well and making it difficult for the Dodgers to make a choice. Hit that like, best analysis in YouTube, not just the Dodgers. This is Matt Kramer. Absolutely do that. Our future looks like it's in good hands. I'm excited about our outfield in 2028 and pitching. A lot of decisions that the Dodgers are going to have to make. Get into a couple more of the comments. Chuck Huddleston, I think Kim could be Swiss Army knife. Edmund could resume his Gold Glove second base when he's back healthy. That very well could be something. I know that. I think that is something. I just listened briefly to some of the conversation that Casey and Coach Holt had yesterday. I think that was part of the conversation that I stumbled across. Was some of the questions of Kim versus once Edmund comes back, what is the role of Edmund versus Kim? It's too early to tell, and I want to see more to see what exactly goes on. And I want to see a little bit more of what defensively Ha-Seong Kim is able to do, especially in the center field type of position. I know Tommy Edman, a lot more experience, being a little bit more of that super utility type of player. Both tremendous defensively at the second base position. Just wait to see what happens. Let's see. Continuing on right here. Tark the Shark. Best thing about Alex Hall is he is not Michael Conforto. That is true. That is not his name right there. And I think offensively, there at least is some stability that Alex Hall has been able to provide that was better than what Michael Conforto was able to provide. Let's see. Continuing on. Almanover, lucky to have this Dodgers channel. Excellent breakdown. Really appreciate it right here. OKC, Dodger Riley, the way they're playing Kim at the defensive position and batting ninth tells me he's the second base front runner. That very well could be something that you could look out for with where he's playing. Kim certainly could be one of the front runners. And honestly, it would not surprise me at all if Ha-Seong Kim is the second baseman. And if it is just based on what he did in spring, in the very, very limited time that he had, at least from what he showed offensively, I think he would have earned it. Now, are some of my concerns away based off of the swing and miss decisions that he has? I still have a ton of concerns based on what I've seen, at least in the very, very small sample size, that Kim is still going to struggle with a lot with swing and miss at the major league level, because we see with some of the numbers that there's a lot of swing and miss still in his game. Not just the swing to strikeout percentage was at 38.5% this spring, but the contact percentage that Kim has so far this spring hasn't necessarily been great. I think that is a concern, but if he can provide just a little bit, the same thing that we talked about with Noah Miller, if he just provides a good enough floor offensively, defense is going to take up the rest, and he's going to be a really solid player. And if they turn to him for that, that is going to be a great thing for the Dodgers to be able to have. A lot of skill sets, a lot of really good competition for the Dodgers going into this upcoming year, and we're going to continue to see it play out. These are some of the things to watch for in spring. So it's not just what is the end result? What does the box score actually tell us? Look at something that can provide you with a little bit more insight. Look at what, from the data that we can, what can provide you a larger sample size. For Alex Freeland, continue, and this is something we're going to be breaking down every single time that I'm able to go live with you guys, is we're going to be taking a look at what are the actual statistics for Alex Freeland with his in-zone contact percentage. What is it? Does he still not chasing outside the zone? Is he being a little bit more aggressive? What does it look like? Look at some of the actual breakdowns, the live at-bats from Baseball Savant, and see what he is doing with pitches in the heart of the zone. How is he doing with pitches in the shadow of the zone as well, to see what is Alex Freeland as an actual player. We can't do that with Ha-Seong Kim anymore because he's going to be in WBC. But how does Ha-Seong Kim look in the WBC World Baseball Classic? With some of the other positions, Santiago Espinal, Nick Senzel. The outfield, you're looking at Alex Call, you're looking at Michael Ciani, you're looking at potentially a Ryan Ward, although it's been a really rough spring so far for Ryan Ward. You're looking at a Jack Sawinski. All these different guys on the offensive side fighting for positions in spring training. For spring training, the overall numbers can be a little bit variable, can be something that you don't want to take completely. But what you can do dig underneath the surface, look at the swing decisions, and look at what the batted ball quality looks like. I think those two things are going to provide the best insight into how well that player can perform going forward for the 2026 season and where the basis of the Dodgers decision should come down. A lot of variables that are moving around, a lot of different moving pieces, and it's going to be a fun battle to be able to continue to watch going forward in spring training. We're just a week in. I'm so glad that baseball is back. I had the privilege to be able to go out there and watch baseball games in person. Highly encourage you guys to be able to go do that. If you can't do it then, when Dodgers games come back, go check out the Dodgers or some of the affiliates that are coming out. There is a lot of good baseball players that are part of the Dodgers organization as a whole. And you're just getting a small scale scope of that. And I'm really excited about that. For the show on Monday, I actually don't know if there will be a show on Monday, only because I don't know if there will be a time, only because with this show that we do, I will not go head to head with the actual Dodgers game. We will let you guys watch the Dodgers game, and if the game is at 3:05, which I believe it is, that kind of interferes. I can only go on, or 3:05 Eastern, 12:05 Pacific. I'm only able to go on from 5:15 to 6:30 Eastern on Mondays. Typically, with the spring training game, that will be towards the end of the spring training game. So I don't know if there will be a show on Monday for me, but I'll try to make sure that I am able to do some sort of live solo show sometime through the course of the next week. We'll also be able to get you guys a show with Casey and I so we can go ahead and talk through some of the breakdown of what we're seeing so far in spring. And I'm sure there will be some interesting debates because I'm sure there is differences of opinion that him and I have on certain topics, and those are some of the fun things to be able to go back and forth on because it's totally possible I might not be thinking about things perfectly. If you disagree with anything that I have to say, please let me know respectfully down in the comment section. I'd be happy to be able to have some sort of interaction with you that's able to just increase some of our intellectual knowledge to be able to go ahead and have a fun back and forth conversation in some of the comment section. We'll also be doing more of these live shows where we can have some more conversation. First off, thank you for everybody for tuning in, for Matt Kramer for the super chats. Can't thank you enough for that. And just for all your support that you've had for Dodgers Daily, for the support that you've had for the shows that Casey has done. Really appreciate that for all of you. Until next time that we do a show, which hopefully Casey will have a show at some point for you tomorrow. If not, we'll have a show for you within the next couple of days. Thank you very much for tuning in. God bless. Go Dodgers.